So, how did the role of the upright bass change from the olden time to the modern? First, let's talk about what is a double bass. It is not a guitar or a big violin. It is the biggest string instrument with lowest pitches in the string family. And now we should give everyone a brief history of the bass. It was first invented by Silvestro Ganassi, a musician in Italy back in the 1500s, which he created the viols family, the first string type instrument that appeared in history. Sometimes the double bass will also be recognized in the violin family. However, it is not always the case because the structure of bass are somewhat different from the rest of the string instruments like violin, viola, and cello. Unlike those instruments, the double bass is huge that can be played horizontally and have to be either played by standing up or sitting down with high stools. In the early developed time, the bass is slightly smaller than the modern one and was using the gut strings, the animal intestine strings instead of nylon and steel strings that we use right now. Sometimes there are a fewer strings for the instrument as well because they don't need that many strings in the olden time. So why using more strings? Oh, and moreover, the bass back then only played with bowing like other strings instruments dissimilar to the modern that play with also plucking and slapping. Okay, the background story of the bass is enough. Let's move on. So in the 15th to 17th centuries, the main use of the bass was only for the accompaniment or background of other instruments who got to flex their talents. Since the old double bass had a variety of tunings with different types of string and mechanics, there is no composers write any specific solo pieces for the instrument, which means double bass only plays with ensembles, orchestras, and chamber music groups during that era. Although playing with groups was the only purpose for bass, people started to reconstruct the instrument in the 1700s. And luckily, there were a few composers like Giovanni Bottesini, Karl Dieter von Ditterdorf, and Joseph Haydn, who wrote a few concertos and solo pieces just for the basses. Starting from that time, double bass engaged with more styles of playing, which lead to more variations with the tunings. However, those pieces were still described as unplayable for the majority of the musicians. After decades of generations, countless musical genres started to develop, which including jazz, a more free style of music that became popular in the early 1900s from the African cultures which bass plays an important role in the themes. Rock, a rise of new popular music in the 50s, and also there is another totally different genres of music like country and bluegrass music. Now, in the modern days, people have been widely used the instrument to serve in different styles of music, but most of the time, the role of the bass is still on the accompanying side. Nevertheless, the instrument itself had already been reconstructed for several times and decades. It is capable to do all the complicated solos that all the composers wrote, and its design had already greatly improved so the tone sounds better and easier to transport. For example, electric bass guitar and upright electric bass were invented so people do not have to carry the large wooden instrument around. Do you guys want to know another fun fact about the differences between the 15th century bass to the modern bass? Well, the double bass is a cool instrument that could add an additional supplement to make the playing experience even more interesting. So in the current classical orchestra, there was a lot of music that included notes that is not playable for the normal G2, D2, A1, and E1 strings. In this case, the musician invented a special extension mechanics that can build upon the head of the bass or add the fifth string to the instrument so it can play notes lower than E1. Isn't it cool that we can add additional things that the other string instruments can't? Okay, I think this is about it for my passion project. Thanks for watching.